Welcome to Father and Son, and welcome to you, Tom.
Morning, Dad.
I just had a big night last night, my inaugural stage play. It was called Emerald City, down at the Malthouse, which I gave to the National Trust of the government many years ago. Anyway, we had a packed house, 400 people. We had to bow about 5 times, and they all clapped us, so it was a bit of fun.
I never pictured you as being a thespian.
Oh, well, I was when I was at school. I was in the school plays for 3 years.
Really?
They used to call me a sissy, and I'd bowl them over on the football field. Righto, carbon tax, I suppose. Well, it is quite amazing, I think. This economy's not running too well. Here we are going to slop this tax in on everybody. We discussed it last week, but it looks like they're going to set the rate at about $20 a pop, $20 a tonne.
I think it could be a bit higher. I think they're going to go for $26. That seems to be the murmurs coming out of Canberra. What's got people so upset though? These ads that actually they were put on the TV, not by the government, but by several Green and union groups. They of course starred amongst other people the actor Cate Blanchett, yes, and male actor Michael Caton, probably best known for his role as Daryl Kerrigan on The Castle 15 or so years ago. But I think what people really hate about Cate Blanchett is here's someone who jets around the world, has a huge house in Sydney, and lectures other people about their carbon footprint. And I don't know what I think about celebrities, trying to tell other people how they should live their lives.
No, I think it's terrible. I don't think it works in your favour by doing it either. The other interesting thing somebody told me, and I haven't seen the actual ad, that they say vote for a carbon tax. Now this is almost outside this. If the government put in money, you're saying the government didn't put the money in, because it'd be outside the Electoral Act if they did.
Well, no, that's right. The government is not allowed to fund those sorts of ads, so it's a genuinely independent ad. I mean, you have to say there are figures in the Labor movement who are behind it. Yeah. But you're right, when it comes to voting for a carbon tax, that's interesting, because the carbon tax has been introduced effectively without a vote, because, of course, we were promised prior to the last election that a Gillard-led government would not have one. Now, I wonder if this means that they're anticipating a return to the polls sooner rather than later. And as a result,
she can't go to the polls.
She'd be mad.
No, she'd get annihilated.
But I think what's interesting about the carbon tax now is you're seeing the ads on TV, the negotiations between the government and the Greens. Well, the Greens are in coalition with the government, but the two parties are talking about what level to set it at, how much compensation to pay. Suddenly people are realising this is really happening. And at a time when the economy is hitting a few rough patches, retail spending is not particularly good, bank share prices are down.
Well, the GDP dropped 1.2%.
It did indeed. America has abandoned its carbon tax. The Europeans have got targets going out to midway through the 21st century, but there's no real concrete things. In fact, speaking of which, did you see the German government has decided to get rid of all nuclear power within 15 years? Now, there is no way, short of some technology being invented that we have not yet thought about, there is no way if they shut down their nuclear industry, they can meet their CO2 reduction targets. So you might get rid of nuclear power, but there is no way you'll be able to reduce CO2 emissions if you do that.
It seems a funny sort of reaction. It's obviously come about because of what happened in Japan, but it's obviously electorally very pertinent, otherwise she wouldn't have done it.
Look, as I said previously on this website, after 3 Mile Island in 1979, there was not a single new US reactor built ever. So every nuclear reactor in America is more than 30 years old. After 86 in Chernobyl, it set back the European nuclear industry a decade. I think what happened in Japan is going to do the same thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, what else on the horizon? I mean, economy very flat. Shares are falling. I see Wall Street went down over 200 points last night.
It was almost 300 points on the close. Yeah, well, there's a few things going wrong there, and on my market report I detail it. But essentially there's, locally, look, people aren't spending money. David Jones went on sale on the first day of winter, 1st of June. Now, it's never done that before. A department store would only do it if to be honest, they had a big stack of unsold merchandise. Australians are saving money, paying off debt. They're not spending it in the shops. House prices appear to have, stabilised, in some cases falling. So all that suggests a rather nervous economy. So,
certainly 2 speed, because the mining's still going on unabated.
Well,
Price is still very strong.
They pulled out the rich list. Out of the the 5 wealthiest Australians, 3 of them are now from resources. Clive Palmer, Gina Reinhardt, and some South African bloke living in Switzerland who apparently has an Australian passport. He's worth almost $9 billion. That tells you where the wealth is going. But what if China doesn't keep growing? This is
I think it will, though.
Well, I know you think it will, but what if it doesn't? I mean, we don't ever seem to think about the plan B.
Well, I think plan B is you've still got India there, then they'll be taking more iron ore and coal. I think those 2 industries are going to be very strong. Gold's very strong because of the weakness and concern around the world on other matters. So our gold miners will be doing well, and all the other metals are pretty good. One thing I did want to mention, I went to a cocktail party with the leader of the opposition last Friday night at the hotel.
Which leader of which opposition are you talking
about? The federal.
Oh, Tony Abbott.
Tony Abbott, up at Windsor.
I thought you might be hanging around with the leader of the Labor opposition here in Victoria.
No, I don't. I speak to the government here now. Anyway, Tony Abbott made a wonderful speech. There were about 300 or 400 people there. And I hadn't seen him in the flesh for many years. And he was very, very impressive, and he went around and talked to everybody, and I think everybody came away thinking, well, this guy's a lot better than we all thought he was.
Well, then why then, turning on to federal politics, why does Malcolm Turnbull keep popping up and embarrassing the party, and even Joe Hockey says rather equivocal things? I mean, there appears to be a bit of disunity at the top of the Liberal Party between Tony Abbott, who's the leader, and Hockey and Turnbull, who would probably like to have another crack at his job.
Well, I don't know. I think, they make mountains out of molehills on things like that. I think that will just go away. I mean, there's no doubt he's well entrenched. While the polls are so strong in favour of the Conservative, then he will be the leader into the next election for sure.
And he'll probably win. Yeah, so become the next Prime Minister.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, just on another topic we've spoken about a fair bit, there were 2 more Australian deaths in Afghanistan this week. One by a so-called ally, a member of the Afghan National Army who turned upon his 25-year-old Australian counterpart, shot him apparently 3 times as he was climbing up a ladder to a guard post. I've said many times in these reports, Dad, I think we are wasting our time over there. You'd have to say now that if we can't even trust our own supposed allies, what's the point of being there?
Well, the interesting thing is the vote. I saw this in the paper. The vote's gone up to 66% are now of Australians are against the war, are staying in Afghanistan. Yet while both the Labor Party and the Liberal Party are both supporting it, they'll stay.
Well, that's right. I mean, if both major parties support it, but the fact is the population is against it. And, if I was a smart Taliban and, they can look at things on satellite TV, they can read opinion polls, they know that all they have to do is organise some ambush where, say, 5 or 8 or 10 Australians die, bang, we'll be out. That'll be too much by then, and I think that's the sort of thing that's going to happen.
Well, the other problem you've got is that because of our closeness to the United States and our dependence on them for defence, then we're not going to upset the United States. And that's why I think the Liberals and the Labor Party are both sticking to their guns. They will leave when the US leaves.
But I reckon that might be sooner rather than later. Did you see that President Obama, and I mentioned this before, the debt ceiling of $14.3 trillion, the Republican-dominated Congress will not allow that to be lifted. That means the US government, and in particular the President, have to find some massive spending cuts. Now, defence...
That'll get through.
Well, at the moment, it's not getting through.
No, it will.
Well, the US military, on top of all of its other spending, just being in Afghanistan alone, costed $115 billion a year. I think the government might say, you know what, Osama bin Laden's dead. He's the reason we originally went there. We got him. Let's pull out. And I think that might happen sooner rather than later.
I think you're wrong. Okay, that's it for this week. The Blues are doing quite well. They asked me on the radio this morning whether Ratton should be employed for have his contract extended. My view is no. He's got to finish in the top 4 and then he will have earned the right for a contract.
Well, he's got to finish in the top 4 and win a final. That's what we've got to do.
Okay, we'll see you all next week. Thank you.